The NBA trade deadline is 3 days away, and the Utah Jazz have two big decisions to make. They may be quiet, but the league won't be. It's next on Locked on Jazz.
You are Locked on Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network. Your team every day.
How are you? I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. This is Locked on Jazz. It's your daily podcast in the Utah Jazz, giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, and hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. Thank you so much for making Locked on Jazz your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked on the number one sports podcast network in the land. We are so excited to be with you today, and thank you for carrying us through to our new levels of success as we reach new rankings. Trade deadline is 3 days away. The big rumor that broke last night is the James Harden deal, possibly to Cleveland, and what goes on with Cleveland matters to the Utah Jazz, so we will touch on that. I think there are three storylines for the Utah Jazz coming into the trade deadline, and so we will build on all of those to start. Let's start there on today's show for you and begin with that. And the number one storyline to me for today, for the draft, is what do the Jazz do with their cap space? So the Jazz are one of the few teams in the NBA that has cap space. So what is this? This gives the Jazz a few options. One, if there's a team that is over the tax, luxury tax, and needs to get under the apron or something of that nature, the Jazz can help them do that by taking a contract off their books into the trade exception. If it expires this year, it has no impact on their cap space in the offseason. So you could get a second-round draft pick or some sort of asset for taking a player just in a transactional way that helps someone out. That seems really, really likely. Kind of a mundane, not that interesting, few $1 million into our coffers. We take a player, get a second-round draft pick for it, maybe two. Nothing elegant, exciting, game-changing, franchise-altering, just an acclamation of assets that is the best thing to do at the time. The more exciting option is the Jazz have an $18.3 million cap space. Thanks for Dan Clayton for clarifying. We use part of it for George Niang. And taking in a player that we actually really like that might be good into that space. Like, you wonder whether the Jazz could found a player they really, really like. They could make move some draft picks. They could move some assets. They could bring the player over, and they could bring in $18.3 million. You also can break this up into various pieces and do multiple deals where you get, use 7 here and 5 there and 5 there. That doesn't quite add up, right? No, it adds up perfectly. And gets a bunch of teams taken care of, and you end up with a bunch of second-round draft picks. So let's talk about the cap space concept of actually bringing over a player and something exciting rather than just bringing over second-round draft picks assets. So the first choice the Jazz have to figure out is there a player that's available to them right now that's part of their future that would excite them enough that it's better than going to market and trying to get a free agent or make a deal with cap space this July? The reason the Jazz did not extend Walker Kessler, one of the reasons, was to preserve their financial flexibility in cap space. I'm sure there can be other reasons. They want to see more of him play, do some other things. We didn't really get that. Couldn't reach a deal on money. There's a lot of reasons. I'm sure if the numbers were exactly right, maybe everybody would have done it. But nonetheless, one of the reasons why the Jazz did not extend Walker is because they want to go into the offseason with cap space, acquire someone with that space, go back over the cap, then you re-sign Walker. And that order is important. If you make a move now for some player that has become available that you think is an important piece or that you want to sign in the offseason, or I don't know who that player is, but, Lakers, let's go with it. Like that the Knicks are trying to facilitate the Giannis deal and you can go get Miles Bridges or OG Anunoby for a bunch of draft picks. I don't know that that's realistic, but let's go with that. We've talked about it before. That one, you're using more than the trade exception. You're moving salaries. You're also moving a bunch of draft picks, and you decide that, one, your draft assets that you have in the future are worth moving to get a player of that caliber, which I would 100% agree with. And two, that player is better than or more secure than any player you're going to be able to get with that cap space in the offseason. So that's the calculus that the Jazz have to make here. Is if they're being aggressive and the opportunity arises, if the opportunity doesn't arise, doesn't mean they're not aggressive. Just want to clarify that. Then is that player better than what they might be able to just get in the offseason? I don't expect this to happen, but I will say this. I like that approach way better than hoping in free agency when you're the Utah Jazz. If we're trying to go get an Austin Reaves or a Peyton Watson or something of that nature in the offseason, matches our timeline, good players, restricted free agents, teams probably don't have the money to trade to handle them. We got to outdo Brooklyn, and we probably have to outdo some other teams who create deals that are possible. I don't know where we are as a franchise in people's mind of whether or not we can go get that player to come to us. But on a trade, that player has to come, generally. So I'm actually a little bit more in the school of, is there a player we can acquire right now who does the same thing that Peyton Watson, OG Anunoby, Austin Reaves, whatever kind of, that's the hope, right? I don't know that that's going to happen, but the hope is, can the Jazz add a top 100 level player to this roster through free agency in the offseason? And then you have Keyonte, Walker, Lauri, Ace developing, new draft pick, hopefully. We're working hard at that. And now you're on your way. And then hopefully some of our young players mature a little bit more and are ready to make a jump. But I'm a little bit on the side of do it now, if it's there. I have to be honest. I'm watching and I don't know if it's totally there. So that's number one. Cap space now or cap space later. Trade exception now or trade exception later. Trade exception goes into July. It's $18.3 million. Trade exception, my guess on trade exception is it will be most valuable to the Jazz in doing minor deals, get people off the cap, get some second-round draft picks. I don't think you're getting a lot for that. And I don't know that I see a player that's under $18.3 million who just slides in there that's really worth it. Unless there's a second draft player I don't know about. But so my guess is that the trade exception is used in transactional deals to just grab little assets. And then the question is whether we make a deal now or by using salary that would eat up our cap space, expiring salary that will eat up our cap space for next year, or whether we wait for cap space and use our cap space next year. And as I said, I would side on doing it now because you choose rather than just the free agents and you're trying to figure it out. There's a wild card in there also of how much better do we want to get? What do we think the Jazz can get for their veterans, or what do the veterans want from Utah? That's next on trade, 3 days out on the trade deadline on Locked On Jazz. Tuesday edition of Locked On Jazz is brought to you by Murdoch Hyundai, located at 4646 South State Street, also located in Logan and in Linden. Murdoch's been in Utah for 90 plus years, and Hyundais are just marvelous. I'm driving the brand new Palisade, calligraphy style. Could not be more elegant, more fabulous, more features, be more enjoyable to drive. Hard to beat what you're getting out of that Palisade. I had the Santa Fe hybrid for a little while. Fill it up for gas. You're like 600 miles, about 550, 600 miles. Just incredible. They drive beautifully. The safety features are through the roof. Turning signal, click. You can get to look. You don't have to look away. You can look right on your screen. It tells you what's there. Absolutely fabulous from top to bottom from Murdoch Hyundai. Located at 4646 South State Street. Also located in Logan and in Linden. Let me get you your VIP meeting over there. If you're going to head over and you're looking for a car right now, email me first at dlock09@gmail.com. That's dlock09@gmail.com. And let me get you that VIP meeting you deserve as a member of the Locked On Everydayers. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Here it is. Last call for football on FanDuel. One final Sunday, one last kickoff, the final chance to get in on the action before the NFL season comes to a close. It is Super Bowl 60. FanDuel is making sure you're right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. Whether you're backing the favorite, riding with the underdog, or building one last same-day parlay, this is a game everyone's been waiting for. This is where predictions turn into plays, stats turn into storylines, and every snap feels bigger. It's a perfect way to cap off the season and make the Super Bowl even more exciting from kickoff to final whistle. If you're a new customer, bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win. Make it count, because after the Super Bowl, the season is over. Last call on football, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. FanDuel.com to get started. Thank you very much for joining Locked On. Thank you for tuning in today, making your first listen, and thank you to everyone who's joined the Everydayer program. Right now, we actually have a special deal for you. You get a month free with the promo code DEADLINE. Month free with the promo code DEADLINE on your Everydayer program. Here's what you get. The group chat, part of Discord, Locked On Sports Today, ad-free, and Locked On Jazz ad-free, part of the Everydayer program, and access to our code. You get month free, promo code DEADLINE. If you want to be part of the All Access, we were all texting back and forth last night when the Harden story break. I was in that group immediately, just giving my thoughts to them. They came back at me. Tyson and I went back and forth for a second. Mr. Snow and I went back and forth for a few minutes together. One-on-one direct access with me, texting. Newsletter in your inbox at the end of every show. Access to the Discord channel. Access to the Locked On Sports merchandise store. Exclusive content, extra content. We'll probably do little things when important trades get made. Leaf Tuline's doing amazing draft content and breakdowns for you that are all extra. That's $15 a month. Use the promo code DEADLINE. You get a first month free. Check it out. That is $150 a year if you do the whole yearly program. This is all at supercast.lockedonjazz.supercast.com. Lockedonjazz.supercast.com. All right, the veterans. Kevin Love, Yusuf Nurkic, Kyle Anderson, Svi Mikhailiuk. There's a chance Nurkic could get moved. He's playing great. Toronto's looking for a center. There's a few teams look for a center. He's making $19 million. It's not easy to slide into space, but there's got to be some teams that are looking right now that look at Nurkic and say to themselves, oh, he could help us because he's playing great. Do I think the Jazz can get a first-round pick out of it? That I'm not sure. Maybe, like, let's take the Houston Rockets, for example. They heavily protect a first-round pick. I don't think they have a pick this upcoming year. So you find one down the road, heavily protected. But I think you're probably getting seconds. First-round picks don't move that willingly, frankly. And the Rockets' 2026 pick, I think, goes to OKC. Their 2027 pick goes to Brooklyn. I don't know if I don't know how 28 works because 27 and 29 are encumbered. So they're pretty far down the road. So I don't think they're trading you. They're 31, 32 first-round picks for Yusuf Nurkic, and they're certainly not trading it with a bunch of qualifications to get it so they can't trade their other ones. So I think it's unlikely. The problem with trading it down the road first-round pick is you can't trade one on either side year-wise. So if you trade 32, you can't trade 31, you can't trade 33. Can't trade back-to-back first-round picks. So I think it's very unlikely that the Jazz are able to get a first-round pick or any players of value for any of their four veterans. What could happen is, again, some second-round picks or some things of that nature. Toronto seems to be interested. You know, one wild card that I was looking at last night, I don't think you would do, would be Toronto. Nurkic for Pirtle. Their numbers are the exact same. Toronto sends a first-round pick with it because they get out from under the Pirtle deal. And then actually the Jazz decide that you're keeping Pirtle instead of Kessler. Much cheaper. I'm not entirely sure that those players aren't almost exactly the same also. But Pirtle's contract feels inhibitive, and he's also got a bad back. But that was one I played with last night. Just to, I'm playing the same way you are. I don't want to hide that. I'm not trying to, I'm not this one who's going to pretend like I'm not sitting here on the, spot rack and trying to figure it all out. Pirtle has 19.5 this year, 19.5 next year, then 27, 29, and 27. And I think the last year's only partially guaranteed. And he's 30, and he's got a back problem. So I think I'm staying away from it. But that's an interesting concept that you trade Nurk for Pirtle, who then becomes your new starting center, and then you don't re-sign Walker in the offseason. At that point, maybe you move Walker, and you decide Pirtle can give you the same thing Walker can give you. I don't know if I agree with that, but just conceptually, that's an idea. And then you're trading Walker to Indiana for picks, and you're rebuilding this thing, and Austin Ainge just putting a stamp on it. The second part of this is what do the veterans want? That's actually probably where this is going to be dictated the most. So does Yusuf Nurkic has talked about how he absolutely loves it with the Jazz and what Will Hardy's done for him and how they've opened him up and he's loving basketball, enjoying it. He's still young. Does he want to re-sign in Utah? Likely as Walker Kessler's backup, which is not nearly as much fun as what Nurkic has gotten to do this year, but probably with some real freedom, and the coach loves him and he likes the coach, and there'll be plenty of nights where he would close games because it's the right matchup and et cetera. And then hard to tell, but what's Nurk willing to come back to Utah for? That's really the question mark here. Because that number needs to be not very big. You don't want to pay your backup center a lot of money. I think Nurk's going to have a very limited free agent market in the offseason. Because you don't want to pay your backup a lot of money. So, does Nurk want to come back to Utah? If Nurk doesn't want to come back to Utah, or doesn't care, does Nurk want to go play for a playoff contender? At which point, then he asks for a buyout. Does Kevin Love want to go play for a playoff contender? Or is Kevin Love loving how much time he gets to play, just enjoying himself, his family's set, bouncing between here and Utah and Miami? They're actually happy. They're established. Not actually happy, but they're established, and he doesn't want to live the final 3 months of the season away from his family. So he's like, I'm good. I'll stay in Utah. I'll continue to play. If we trade Nurk, he's playing a lot. Or is Kevin Love going to come to the front agent, going to run around the league, find out somebody is going to take him, willing to take him for the 12th man of the playoff run just to have his presence, and Kevin Love wants to be a part of that. Same thing with Kyle Anderson. I don't know whether there are teams that are competing for playoff runs that want Kevin Love or Kyle Anderson. Quite frankly, if they wanted Kevin Love at the beginning of the season, he would have gone. That option was available to him, and it didn't materialize. And then he came to Utah, and it's been great. He's been an incredible veteran leader, and he has gotten a lot of playing time, much more than I think he anticipated. Svi, it's not quite the same thing. The Jazz have Svi signed for another 2 or 3 years at an incredible deal and are very excited to have him be a part of the roster. Nights like 2 nights ago or last night, 2 nights ago, are why you feel that way. Just battled, set the tone, played defensively. He's a great guy to have on your roster moving forward. Maybe not as a starter, but a great guy to have on your roster moving forward. And so I think that one's a little different because I don't think if Svi asks out to go play in a playoff contender, I don't think the Jazz are going to say yes because they have him under contract. And unless somebody's going to trade for Svi, I think Svi's contract value for the Jazz for the next 2 or 3 years at a low number is more valuable than anything else you're going to get. So on the veteran front, what's interesting here is in a lot of ways, I think it's actually up to them. It's going to be dictated by what the veterans want and whether they actually have a spot to go. But I don't expect the Jazz to bring in a haul on trade deadline for any of their veterans. And I don't think, frankly, Nurkic, Love, Kyle Anderson were acquired with the same intention that John Collins and Colin Sexton were a little bit, where we can rehabilitate him and get something for him, and that didn't actually work out. So I would say that that's where we sit with the veterans. Anything the Cleveland Cavaliers do impacts the Utah Jazz. Right. Because of their picks. And evidently, the Cleveland Cavaliers are about to do something maybe that to me seems super wacky and maybe desperate. Next on Locked on Jazz. Today's show is brought to you in part by Indeed. Are you hiring? Well, do it the right way with Indeed. Hiring isn't just about finding someone willing to take the job. It's about finding the right person with the right background who can actually help your business move forward. And if you want candidates who match what you're looking for, Indeed sponsored jobs is the move. Because Indeed, instead of hoping the right person stumbles across your post, Indeed helps you match with quality candidates by boosting your job listing to people who fit your specific criteria, like skills, certifications, and locations. If I were hiring, I wouldn't just want someone who can help. I'd want someone with real experience who can jump right in. That's what it's like. That's what I like about Indeed. You get specific target, exactly what you need. It saves time because you're spending less energy sorting through mismatches. And with sponsored jobs, your post gets seen by candidates who can actually fit. And here's a stat. In a minute, I've been talking to you. Companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all the boxes with Indeed sponsored job. That's Indeed sponsored jobs. Today's show is also brought to you by TurboTax. Yep. It's that time of year. Tax season doesn't have to overtake your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. TurboTax full service. You can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert, start to finish, without the stress or the guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person or connect online. They can handle everything from W-2s to self-employed forms and work to get you every deduction. You can upload your documents, go about your day, get updates right in the TurboTax app. It's a huge time saver. Gives real peace of mind knowing an expert is there to handle it for a limited time. You can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in. If TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year, just file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate. Get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today. Thanks so much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen. All right. The Cleveland Cavaliers are in advanced talks, at least that's the phrasing, for Darius Garland to go to the Clippers and James Harden to go to the Cavaliers. I got to say, I'm a little surprised on this one. Frankly, on a lot of things. Okay. So let's just zero in on Cleveland, because that's who we care about. And the reason we care about Cleveland, just to remind everyone, is that in 2027, the Jazz get the better pick between Minnesota and Cleveland. Okay? So next year, the Jazz get the better pick between Minnesota and Cleveland. In 2028, we have a pick swap with Cleveland. And in 2029, I believe we get the best of Minnesota and Cleveland. Minnesota's is protected. 1 through 4. Okay. So if Cleveland's about to hit the skids, it matters to us. Cleveland has Evan Mobley signed for 4 more years after this one in the range of $60 million. They have Darius Garland signed for 2 more years after this one in the range of 40. They have Jared Allen signed at 30 for the next few years, 3 years. Sam Merrill at 10. Good for Sam Merrill for 3 years. And then there's Darius Garland at 42 this year and 44 next year. Or 42 next year and 44 the year after. The wild card is at the end of the 26-27 season, Donovan Mitchell can opt out and be a free agent at the end of next year. Here's the irony to me. I've always said that I thought Donovan Mitchell would end up on the LA Clippers. I've always said that. And the LA Clippers have $1 million of cap space in the 27-28 season, as do the Golden State Warriors. There are a bunch of teams that are appealing, that are clearing the deck to have a bunch of cap space. Miami is clearing it as well. So the 27-28 free agency is going to be nuts. Golden State, LA, and Miami all will have cap space to sign Donovan Mitchell. Did Cleveland just decide that they know that they can't re-sign Donovan Mitchell after next season? And so they just are going all in with James Harden right now? And is James Harden really where you're going all in? The first question I really want an answer to is, why is Cleveland doing this? I'm going to listen to Danny Cunningham on Locked On Cavaliers later today. But my first thought is with the Clippers, Golden State, and Miami, with oobles and gobbles and goobles of money, whatever that is, Cleveland has decided that they have Donovan Mitchell for this year and 1 more. Or maybe they've even decided that they don't have Donovan Mitchell for next season because the looming possibility of him leaving in free agency means they have to move him. If I'm Cleveland, Kobe Altman's really good and really smart, and I'm sitting in Ohio right now, and I know the Clippers and the Heat and the Warriors can max out Donovan Mitchell at the same time I can, I'm not confident that I'm keeping Donovan Mitchell. And therefore, I'm either trading Donovan Mitchell this offseason or next trade deadline as a real possibility. Or I'm just going to run it all the way out and then he goes in free agency, which might actually turn out to be a better move. In the old days, you would never do that. You might do that now. And what's interesting on this also is them getting off Darius Garland, whose foot has been a problem. But here's the other thing on Darius Garland. And there's some personality issues with Trae Young. But we are about to have two of the best small guards in the NBA. Trae Young and Darius Garland yield you in trades. Trae Young got Corey Kispert and CJ McCollum. And Darius Garland got you a 37-year-old James Harden. I think the era of the small guard is over. Cleveland also might have just decided we have no chance with Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell as our backcourt. It's just too small. But this deal that is being talked about between the Cavaliers and the Clippers, you've got to ask yourself why. So from the Clippers standpoint, which I don't want to get deep into, I think the why is that James Harden basically said, I want an extension. They're not going to give it to him, and they just decide it's not worth it. If they're not giving him an extension offseason, he's leaving at the end of the year, and they're not going to get anything for him. And they can get Darius Garland, who's young. It's probably worth getting something. That's my guess. That one's pretty simple. That they know Harden wants the extension. They know they're not going to give it to him because they're going to keep their cap space. They know it's going to be a problem. Harden basically has asked for the extension. Now Harden's asking out because Harden has to agree to this trade. So Harden's basically agreeing to be moved. Harden wants an extension. He's hoping Cleveland's going to give it to him, which is interesting because the whole point of Cleveland getting him, seemingly to me, would be getting out from under the money of Darius Garland. But I think for the Jazz, we banked on a draft picks from either Cleveland or Minnesota being a value in 27 and 29. There's a real chance. Now, by the way, the 27 draft that we're talking about next year, Donovan would have played in theory, but maybe not. Cavaliers are in a bind. All right, that is Locked On Jazz today. We'll be with you tonight after the Jazz and the Pacers game. Pacers played really well last night. They're actually playing pretty well. Pascal Siakam's an all-star. We'll look at that one. And the Jazz getting ready to go to battle. And then we'll talk to you from Atlanta, where we'll be for 2 days, and the trade deadline will loom. Join us on the Everydayer Club. Go to lockedonjazz.supercast.com. Get all the extra insight. Use the promo code DEADLINE to get a month free. See if it's worth it for you. Be a part of it. Get Leaf Tuline's extra bonus content. Get my one-on-one texting in the Everydayer Club, $15 a month. Deadline is your promo code, plus ad-free, plus Locked On Sports ad-free, plus Discord channel, plus merchandise store, plus daily newsletter, plus. We try to give you a lot of stuff for that. That's all at lockedonjazz.supercast.com. Or you can follow me on socials at DLock09. We now send you the first ever 24/7 national NBA channel on YouTube. Locked On NBA. On audio, check out Game Night. Nick and Camille talking about last night.